Jaguar, Chapter 6, starting on page 63. Flana led us down a trail to her camp, which turned out to be 150 feet up in the canopy. "I'll lower the gear down." She strapped her harness on, attached a rope hanging from a tree, and began her ascent, using some kind of clamping device that held her in place until she pulled herself up further. She made it look as easy as climbing a ladder, which I'm sure it wasn't. I could tell that Doc wanted to explain the situation to me, but I was too mad even to look at him. I was convinced that Flana was the main reason he didn't want me with him in Brazil. It had very little to do how dangerous it was down here. Flana crawled around through the canopy like a monkey. Despite my feelings for her, I was pretty impressed with her abilities. She gathered her equipment and lowered it down to us, one bunch at a time. "Flana has her doctorate in tropical ecology," Doc said. "She's been down here for 3 years studying the medicinal uses of rainforest plants. She has a grant from a large pharmaceutical company in the States, but that ran out about 3 weeks ago, so she threw in with us." I didn't say anything to him. Flana must have come down here right after she got her doctorate. She was definitely under 30, which would make her about 14 or 15 years younger than Doc. I had read about the medicinal uses of rainforest plants. Many of the life-saving drugs we use originated from plants found in the tropical rainforest. Many scientists believe that the cure for almost every disease could be found in the rainforest. It was just a matter of finding the right plant before it was lost forever because of deforestation. "Jake, I interrupted him. "I don't want to talk about this right now." "Okay," he said quietly. "That's it," Flana yelled down to us. A few seconds later, she dropped from the canopy like a spider on the end of the silk thread. We each took some of the gear and headed out to the forest. I walked ahead so I wouldn't have to talk to either of them. I was angry and confused. I needed time to think. A lot of time. It was nearly dark when we got back to the truck. We put Flana's stuff in the back and climbed into the cab. Flana sat between me and Bob. When we got back to the warehouse, we found Bill and Buzz drinking beer and playing card games at the kitchen table. "I see the crew has been hard at work," Doc said. "We need some parts for the engine, which we can't get until tomorrow," Bill said. "Pull up a chair, Doc." "Not tonight." "Flana?" "No, thanks." "That leaves you, Jake. You interested in joining our friendly little game?" I was in no mood for cards, and watching them reminded me of my future with the inmates back at the home. I shook my head. "Flana and I are going to walk into town and get something to eat," Doc said. "Anyone want to come?" He looked at me. "I'm going to take a shower and go to bed," I said. I found some clean clothes and went into the bathroom for a quick shower. When I came back, Bill and Buzz were still playing cards and barely noticed me. Flana and Doc were gone. I walked outside and wandered down to the river. It was a nice evening despite the humidity. Thick clouds have moved in and lightning flashed on the other side of the river. I thought of sending another dispatch to the home. This afternoon, my father told me he was sending me to summer camp. In the fall, I'd be attending boarding school. I had the pleasure of meeting his new girlfriend, Flana Brenna. She's a knockout and young enough to be my sister. I hope all is well with all of you. Everything down here is absolutely perfect. Jake. I tried to sort out my feelings. Doc and my mom had been divorced for a couple of years when she died. She remarried as soon as the divorce was final. The guy's name was Sam, and he was a real jerk, but he and my mom got along pretty well. I put up with him for her sake. Doc and my mom rarely got along. She loved living in New York City. Doc hated big cities. New York, most of all. She was a professor and loved the university atmosphere. Doc thought university people were the most boring blowhards on earth. His idea of bliss was wandering around the middle of nowhere, observing wild animals, or, as my mom used to say, he's a man who needs to be out in the wilderness howling at the moon. I didn't mind that Doc had a girlfriend. Flana was obviously intelligent and independent and could climb a rope better and faster than anyone else I'd ever seen. What bothered me was the fact that he hadn't told me about her. After our experiences in Kenya, I thought he had become my partner. I thought that he had given up on being my parent. This was one reason he had insisted that I call him Doc, not Dad. I must have been mistaken. Parents split up. Families split up. But partners stay together. Or I thought so. A partner should at least tell you when he finds a girlfriend. Doc was acting like a parent who didn't want to be a parent. What was I acting like? I didn't want to think about this. I also didn't want to think about us being in Manius anymore. I couldn't stand the thought of 5 more days of Doc and Flana having meaningful eye contact with each other. 5 more days of knowing that I would be back in the home in 5 more days. Doc had the next few years of my life planned out for me. 3 months of summer camp with other kids whose parents didn't want them around, then off to boarding school for 9 months with kids in the same situation. If Doc didn't want me with him, I guess it didn't matter how I spent the next few years. In the morning, I would tell him that I wanted to catch the next flight back. No sense in sticking around. Flana slept on the cot in the mat room. The rest of us slept on the bunk beds. Well, I didn't exactly sleep. I spent most of the night lying on my cot listening to the others sleep. I was grateful that when Bill finally stumbled out of bed and started clanging around the kitchen, trying to get the coffee going, I got up and helped him. Buzz and Doc weren't too far behind. Flana joined us, just as Bill was pouring the coffee. She was the only one who looked relatively rested. Buzz and Bill were feeling the effects of their poker game, and Doc looked as if he had spent the night wide awake as I had. "What's the matter with the boat?" Doc asked. "I think it's the fuel system," Buzz said. "We'll take it apart this morning, and as soon as his coffee starts to work." "When will we be able to leave?" Flana asked. "As soon as the boat's in shape. We're ready to go." "We'll wait until next Saturday," Doc said, glancing at me. "You won't have to wait for me," I said. "If you're ready to go sooner." "We'll wait," Bill interrupted. "Actually, I was going to check and see if I can get an earlier flight back," I said, and I looked at Doc. "I don't see any point in sticking around any longer." This emptied the kitchen pretty quickly. Flana remembered something important she had to do in the map room. Buzz and Bill took their cups of coffee to the boat to work on the engine. I think Doc wanted to go somewhere too, but he didn't have any choice. "I know you're unhappy with me, Jake. You came down here knowing that you weren't coming back." I interrupted. "You put me in a retirement home, for crying out loud. You didn't write. You didn't call. You have a girlfriend who isn't much older than I am, and you're taking her up the Amazon and sending me back to summer camp and boarding school? I'm not unhappy, Doc. I'm furious." Doc glanced at the map room door. "Maybe we should go outside," he said quietly. I wanted to suggest another place he could go all by himself, but instead I got up and went outside. Doc was right behind me. We went out the back door of the warehouse. Bill was just about to board the boat, carrying a gas can in one hand and his coffee in the other. Buzz was about 20 feet behind him, carrying a heavy toolbox. "Okay," I said, "we're outside. Where do you want to go?" Suddenly, a blast knocked both of us off our feet. Fiery debris slammed into the metal warehouse. I lay there with the wind knocked out of me, and bats poured out through the open door. After I regained my breath and some of my senses, I looked to see if Doc was okay. He was running towards the boat, now engulfed in black smoke. Someone was on the ground in front of the boat, on fire. I ran after Doc. I got there just in time to see his shirt ignite as he tried to help whoever was on the ground. I tore my shirt off and wrapped it around Doc, smothering with flames. It was way too late for the other person. I was afraid there might be another explosion. "Come on, Doc, we've got to get out of here." I pulled him away from the boat. "Who was it?" he screamed. "Who was it?" I didn't know.